Innovative Energy Group. Keep on watching the Caribbean Business Exchange.
The time by Kyrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The Business News headlines is brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Rising prices, regional currency pressures, and the Israel-Iran standoff sending global markets into shockwaves. Hello, and welcome to CBX Business News for Tuesday, June 17, 2025. I'm Yanil Wood. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast locally, Jamaica's inflation rises by 0.4% in May, driven by higher electricity and housing costs. On the regional front, Suriname's central bank warns against speculation as currency pressures mount, vows firm action to stabilize exchange rates. And over on the global stage, European markets tumble as the Israel-Iran conflict escalates, deepening investor uncertainty across the continent. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited has been a part of Jamaica's manufacturing landscape for over 20 years. By crafting unique flavors and fragrances, we have become a part of your favorite household and food items such as beverages, ice cream, household cleaners, and much more. Known throughout the Caribbean for the highest quality, we continue to innovate with strong leadership, a dedicated team with integrity. We go the extra mile for our customers. Create the next taste sensation. Contact us at 876-923-5111 or visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn pages.
Are so much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
To open a savings account for my son John. I really want him to start saving and managing his own money.
And I need for Safe to visit my father in New York.
Okay, based on what you said and our risk assessment, he will qualify for simplified customer due diligence requirements. I'll need your ID, proof of income, TRN, and John's ID as well.
Okay, here you go.
Opening an account is easier than you think using simplified customer due diligence requirements, also called CDD.
Hurricane safety tips from CBX. Please ensure your safety during the hurricane season by diligently following these tips. Store a 4 to 5 day supply of non-perishable ready-to-eat food. Ensure you have materials for securing doors and windows. See that galvanized sheeting on your roofs, outbuildings, and fences are securely fastened. Trim trees with branches near to the buildings or electrical lines. Keep a hurricane lamp burning as it may make the night more tolerable. Listen to the radio for information on what's happening. Be sure to understand the hurricane warning system. Have on hand simple first aid supplies. Keep plastic bags, nails, hammer, and other tools handy. Do not go outside unless it's absolutely necessary. These are hurricane tips from CBX. Be safe.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading. Better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with the latest update on inflation locally. Jamaica's inflation rate measured by the Consumer Price Index (CPI) rose by 0.4% in May, increasing from 141.3 in April to 141.9. In a release Monday, the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin reported that the main contributor to this increase was a 1.5% increase in the index of the Housing, Water, Electricity, Gas and Other Fuels division. This increase was influenced primarily by a 4.4% rise in the index of the Electricity, Gas and Other Fuels group, which was largely impacted by higher electricity rates. Another impact on the inflation rate was a 0.9% increase in the index of the Restaurant and Accommodation Services division due to increased prices for meals consumed away from home. The index of the heavily weighted food and non-alcoholic beverages division went up by 0.1%. Statin says this was influenced by increases in the index of the classes fish and other seafood 1%, cereals and cereal products 0.4%, and meat and other parts of slaughtered land animals 0.4%. However, the increase for this division was tempered by decreases in the index of the classes vegetables, tubers, plantains, cooking bananas and pulses, and fruits and nuts of 0.4% and 1.6% respectively. Meanwhile, the point-to-point inflation rate for May 2024 to May 2025 was 5.2%. This was influenced mainly by the point-to-point inflation rates for the division's food and non-alcoholic beverages 6.5%, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels 7%, and restaurant and accommodation services 7.1%. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett has announced that more than 500 small and medium tourism enterprises, SMTEs, have benefited from the Tourism Enhancement Fund TEF loan program created by the government. The minister provided details during his presentation at the sectoral debate in the House of Representatives earlier today.
We created the small and medium tourism enterprises. We created a position for those who are providing more than 30% of their activities to tourism. And the world has borrowed it, if I'm allowed to say so with some pride, that we introduced it at the G20 in Argentina, and it was adopted. And the OAS today has SMTE as a designation for support across the Americas.
According to Mr. Bartlett, Jamaica is the first country to create the SMT initiative adopted by other countries worldwide.
We created a position for those who are providing more than 30% of their activities to tourism. And the world has borrowed it, if I'm allowed to say so with some pride, that we introduced it at the G20 in Argentina, and it was adopted. And the OAS today has SMTE as a designation for support across the Americas.
Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett. In other news, Kintyre Holdings, formerly iCreate Limited, has reported an increase in net profit for the year ended December 31, 2024. In its audited financial statements for the period, Kintyre says revenues totaled $216,837,978 when compared to the $160,268,174 earned at the end of 2023. The revenues represent the invoiced value of tuition fees, e-commerce services, events production, and digital outdoor advertising, less discounts. The company's gross profit for the year ended December 31, 2024, amounted to $193,639,596, representing an increase over the 2023 gross profit of $130,177,633. Meanwhile, net profit for the year ended December 31 was $71,996,807. In 2023, the company suffered a net loss of $153,900,571. The company had an earnings per stock unit for 2024 of 3 cents. However, in 2023, this amounted to a loss per stock unit of 19 cents. Now to foreign currency trading news. At the end of Tuesday's currency trading, the US dollar is selling for $160.01, the Canadian for $117.97, and the pound will go for $215.16. The going rate for the euro is $188.66. From foreign currency trading, we go to trading news on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. 102 stocks traded on the JSE Tuesday, of which 36 advanced, 46 declined, and 20 traded firm. Leading the winners were Access Financial Services, Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, Epley Caribbean Property Fund SCC, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company. While the losers were led by Sterling Investments US Dollar, Main Event Entertainment, Berger Paints, and ISP Finance Services. Now the main index advanced by 326.36 points or 0.10% to close at 311,654.19. The junior market index, however, declined by 26.47 points or 0.78% to close at 3,368.62. Now to some company news. Lasco Distributors Limited has declared an interim dividend of 12 cents per share payable on July 24 this year to shareholders on record as at July 1. The ex-dividend date is also July 1, 2025. And Lasco Manufacturing has declared an interim dividend of 19 cents per share payable on July 24 to shareholders on record as at July 1, which is also the ex-dividend date. And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard. In today's Market Education Feature, we'll be looking at the term Strategic Business Unit. A Strategic Business Unit, SBU, is a self-contained, independently functioning division within a company that operates like a separate business. Each unit has its own vision, strategic direction, and growth objectives. Its primary goal is to maximize profitability by concentrating on a specific product or service tailored to a defined market segment. These units are usually smaller business entities within a larger organization that offers a wide range of products and services. As such, they function as profit centers, operating independently with distinct business divisions focused on a specific product line, geographic area, or target market. The market education feature was brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for our market education feature and the end of the local segment. Please stay with us. The regional business news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the QMAX possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why QMAX Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
Welcome back, and now for the regional business news. The Central Bank of Suriname has issued a stern warning to market players, condemning speculative behavior and alarmist commentary that it says are destabilizing the foreign exchange market and fueling unnecessary panic. In a strongly worded statement, the bank criticized both buyers and suppliers for engaging in practices that distort the recently implemented flexible exchange rate system. It also cautioned against public narratives that amplify negative sentiment, warning that these dynamics are compounding market volatility and underpinning the country's economic recovery. The bank revealed that rising domestic expenditure and fluctuations in global currency markets have increased pressure on local exchange rates since March. In response, the central bank conducted 3 foreign currency auctions in April and May, injecting US dollars into the financial system while simultaneously absorbing over Surinamese $1.2 billion in liquidity, a move that helped slow the pace of depreciation. Meanwhile, Central Bank Governor Maurice Romer emphasized that the bank will continue to act decisively whenever exchange rates rise too quickly or deviate significantly from model-based expectations. Barbados has generated strong international interest in its clean energy future, with 69 companies having signaled their intent to compete for the island's first large-scale battery energy storage system, BESS project. The tender, issued by the Ministry of Energy and Business, calls for 60 megawatts of battery storage capacity, a critical component of the country's push to integrate more renewable energy into the national grid. Speaking recently at the launch of the second phase of the BESS procurement for Barbados, Energy and Business Minister Lisa Cummins emphasized that the move is not just about climate goals, but also about economic security.
This is about energy independence and removing and replacing Barbados's import bill for energy. Renewable energy replaces our fossil fuel sources. So in 2024, and you've heard me say before, 2023 I think it was, and I talked about those numbers, we went close to $1 billion, and the central bank is here, in the imports of fossil fuels to be able to power this country.
Barbados' Energy and Business Minister, Lisa Cummins. In other news, St. Lucia has joined a new global alliance for food security, partnering with Brazil in a strategic move to improve food access and affordability across the region. As part of the agreement, St. Lucia has begun importing meat and chicken products from northern Brazil, an area globally recognized for its high-volume, low-cost protein production. Speaking during a pre-cabinet press briefing on Monday, Prime Minister Philip Japere says this initiative is expected to ease the burden on consumers, with the government having already removed value-added tax VAT on several meat products.
St. Lucia has begun to import meat products and chicken products from Brazil. The north of Brazil is known for the production of meat and chicken at affordable prices. And the work done by the Ministry of Agriculture, we've ensured that we can take all the sanitary conditions. We are importing food from meat and chicken from Brazil. We look forward to whether there's going to be a reduction in the cost of these products. And considering the fact that we've removed VAT and we've removed them in some instances, we've zero-rated those that were exempt, we hope that we can see a reduction in the price of the meat and the meat products that come from Brazil.
Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philip Japere. Now to trading news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. 19 securities traded on the TTSE Tuesday, of which 9 advanced, 5 declined, and 5 traded firm. Leading the winners were One Caribbean Media, LJ Williams, Guardian Holdings, and CIBC Caribbean Bank, while the losers were led by Ansa McCull, Agostini's Limited, the West Indian Tobacco Company, and National Flour Mills. Other results include the All-TNT Index declining by 10.20 to close at 1,505.07. The Composite Index declining by 1.97 to close at 1,033.60. However, the cross-listed index advanced by 0.96 to close at 74.07. And still at 91.81 is the SME Index. And we go for a short break, but please stay with us. The international news segment with Rondine Williams is up next.
Welcome back to CBX Business News, and now for the international news updates. European stocks closed sharply lower on Tuesday as escalating tensions between Israel and Iran weighed heavily on global investor sentiments. The Eurozone's benchmark stock 50 indexes declined 0.9% to finish at 5,290, while the broader stock 600 shed 0.8% to close at 542. Frankfurt's DAX dropped 1.1% to 23,435, its lowest level since May 8, reflecting widespread risk aversion. The downturn followed the heightened geopolitical concerns after U.S. President Donald Trump called for the evacuation of Tehran and made an early exit from the G7 summit. Financial stocks led the decline, reversing gains from the previous session. Major banks, including Intestas and Palo UniCredit, fell more than 2%. The technology sector also came under pressure, and the renewable energy shares were hit as well. Turning now to developments in the United States. U.S. economic momentum showed signs of strain in May 2025, with both retail sales and industrial production falling short of expectations. Retail sales dropped 0.9% month over month, the steepest decline in 4 months as consumers pulled back spending ahead of anticipated tariffs. The decline followed a downwardly revised 0.1% dip in April and was worse than the expected 0.7% fall. The sharpest declines were seen in motor vehicle parts dealers, building materials and garden equipment suppliers, and gasoline stations. Industrial production also slipped, falling 0.2% in May after a modest 0.1% gain in April, missing forecasts of a 0.1% increase. Manufacturing output, which makes up 78% of total industrial productions, edged up just 0.1% below the 0.2% forecast. Mining output rose 0.1%, while utilities plunged 2.9%. Capacity utilization declined 77.4%, 2.2 percentage points below the long-term average, signaling underused industrial capacity. Meanwhile, in the U.S. aviation industry, JetBlue Airways has announced a new wave of cost-cutting initiatives as the airline concedes the break-even in 2025 is now unlikely, citing persistent weakness in travel demand and falling ticket prices. In a memo to employees, the airline's CEO acknowledged that the airline's financial recovery is taking a longer than expected turn. To address the financial strain, JetBlue is enacting several measures aimed at reducing costs and improving efficiency. The airline is scaling back underperforming routes, shelving retrofit plans for older jets, and reducing internal travel and hiring. JetBlue remains focused on shifting capacity to more profitable routes and improving premium services like lounge. JetBlue remains focused on shifting capacity to more profitable routes and improving premium services like lounges and first-class seating. The carrier hasn't posted an annual profit since 2019 and has faced recent setbacks, including failed mergers and alliances. Finally, in global energy markets, WTI crude oil futures jumped more than 2.5% on Tuesday to reach $73.60 per barrel, nearing a 5-month high as geopolitical tensions in the Middle East intensifies. The rally followed a dramatic escalation in Israel-Iran conflict, with the U.S. President Donald Trump calling for the evacuation of Tehran after Israeli airstrike targeted key sites in the Iranian capital, including state media facilities. Despite the heightened military activity, reports emerge suggesting Iran is urgently seeking to de-escalate the situation and resume negotiations over its nuclear program. These developments contribute to a highly volatile trading session on Monday, during which oil prices fluctuated within an $8 range before ultimately closing lower. Additionally, adding to the uncertainties are potentially new U.S. tariffs and increased OPEC Plus output. Analysts warn that the supply and pricing may remain volatile in the weeks ahead. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast, but please do stay with us because when we return, we'll have the news recap.
Welcome back, and now to recap our top stories. Jamaica's inflation rises by 0.4% in May. Regionally, Suriname's central bank warns against speculation as currency pressures mount. And on the international scene, European markets tumble as Israel-Iran conflict escalates. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of Rondine Williams and the entire production team, I'm Yanil Wood, thanking you for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
The Caribbean Business Exchange now presents a